Good evening, everyone. My name is Rodney Hakim, and I welcome you to our first installment for 2022 of New York Shakespeare Live right here on Instagram. We'll take a moment to allow people to join our discussion. For those of you who are joining us for the very first time, again, my name is Rodney Hakim. I'm the voice behind the New York Shakespeare social media feeds. And our mission with New York Shakespeare is to bring you as much Shakespeare as we can that is happening in and around New York. Now, whether that is theatrical presentations, whether that's film screenings, book readings, whatever it might be, whatever format, whatever medium it might be, as long as it pertains to Shakespeare and it's happening in New York, we try to bring you as much of that content as possible. And we're all across social media. We're right here on Instagram. We are on Facebook with our Facebook group, with our Facebook page. We are on Twitter. We are on LinkedIn. We are on WordPress. We're all over the place. We are even on YouTube, and you can even go back, and we have our live interview here tonight, our live interview program. You can go back and catch dozens and dozens and dozens of our past interviews, both the full episodes and the individual interviews, as well as our deep dive discussions, our panel discussions, our classes, our all-star productions, and much more. And that's all available free on YouTube, right here on Instagram, on the IGTV tab. That's the middle tab next to the one where you have all the images. And you also can find it on Facebook and across our social media. So we have a very exciting program for you tonight. We have some wonderful, wonderful guests, and we'll also be reviewing our 2021 year in review. We'll be discussing our nominees and the winners of our awards, our second annual New York Shakespeare Awards, and we'll be discussing the wins with several of our top award recipients, including Karl Cofield and Ty Jones of the Classical Theater of Harlem. We have Debra and Byrd of Becoming Othello and the founder of the Harlem Shakespeare Festival. Harlem, very, very strong in our awards this year. We also have Kirby and Seth Duerr of the new book, Staging Shakespeare's Violence. So we have a lot of exciting things happening here tonight. And before we get into our interviews for tonight, let us take a moment just to recap. And first of all, let's say hello to all the people who are joining us here tonight. We have several people joining us here in the live chat. And of course, after this program concludes, we will save this program to the IGTV tab of our Instagram channel, and we will replay the entire program. It'll be available on demand at your convenience. We will also port this over to our Facebook and to our YouTube channels. So this program will be available for you to catch in its entirety or in pieces, however you would like to best consume it. But let us take a moment to discuss what's happening in the world of New York Shakespeare. As we all know, it is the end of January 2022. Today is January 31st. And the year started off with a kind of a mixed feeling because we were hopeful going into the new year right after the Christmas holiday season with the return of Broadway that occurred in the fall, of the return of live theater. So there was so much Shakespeare and other theatrical presentations, other different kinds of Shakespeare being presented, whether film screenings, whatever the case might be, that was starting to happen in person as opposed to only in the mediated Zoom and YouTube formats that became prevalent in 2020. So much of that came back into the real life, the real interaction, the face-to-face, in-person live experience that we were all so accustomed to. And so much of that had disappeared during the pandemic era in 2020. In 2021, a lot of it came back, especially as we got into the summer months, the spring and the summer. We had a ton of different Shakespeare presentations occurring over the course of the summer. In some ways, I would say that it was one of the busiest outdoor summer Shakespeare seasons yet, this past 2021. But as we got into the fall, we saw a mix of different companies going into the indoor realm and taking the chance, because there was, as much as there was the desire, the urge to get back into the traditional theatrical setting or the film setting or whatever the case might be, we saw that as that progressed and we got into the later months of the year, we saw the return of the coronavirus with the Delta and the Omicron variants, and the return of Broadway, the return of indoor theatrical presentations. All of that kind of came and then suddenly came to a stop, because we saw that Broadway shows, different theatrical presentations had to stop, cancel performances, close out their runs entirely, or in other ways alter what they were doing, because the the situation didn't allow them to maintain that in-person interaction. So as we go into 2022, we have a lot of exciting things happening. We have the debut of the film version of Macbeth from Joel Cohen, and that stars Denzel Washington and Frances McDormand, and that has been in theatrical release. It was in the New York Film Festival in the fall, and it was in theatrical release in early this year, late December, early January, and it's also on Apple TV. We also saw a big thing that's coming up is the Broadway version. We have the film version of Macbeth. We have the Broadway version of Macbeth, and that's going to be starring Daniel Craig and Ruth Negga, and that is coming up in March. So we're very excited about that. But again, the questions that I raised, we wonder how this is all going to pan out over the next couple of months. Are we going to see that theatrical presentations, the film screenings, the different kind of in-person gatherings, are we going to see that those are going to return and going to be able to continue in the format that we're accustomed to, or are we going to have to see some modifications and some cancellations? We'll actually be discussing that with Ty Jones and Karl Cofield in regard to the remount of Seize the King, our award winner for Best Drama and for Best Director. We'll be discussing what's going to be happening or not happening with that remount. So again, we'll be talking with Ty Jones and Karl Cofield. I just mentioned them from Seize the King. That is our award winner for Best Drama and for Best Director. We have tonight, again, Debra and Byrd, our award winner for Best Solo Show, for Becoming Othello, and for Best Actor. And we also have two other award winners. We have Seth Duerr and Jared Kirby from our award winner for the Best Shakespeare Book, and that is Staging Shakespeare's Violence. And that'll all be coming up in just a moment. If we'll take a moment to read off our list of nominees and winners for the 2021 Second Annual New York Shakespeare Awards. If anyone is in our audience here has any questions, any thoughts they want to share, any ideas they want us to discuss with our guest tonight, please let us know. So our 2021 New York Shakespeare Awards, we had many more awards this year than we had in 2020 with our inaugural awards. And this time around, we started off by giving a special recognition. You know, we acknowledged early on in our award list, and you can find that list, by the way, if you're curious. If you haven't seen it yet, you can go to New York Shakespeare, all spelled out, newyorkshakespeare.wordpress.com, and you can find that full article with our complete nominations, our award winners, and some discussion about what's happening in the world of New York Shakespeare, along with links to many of our videos and all of our social media. You can find all that content there. What we're talking about here is the special recognition that we're allowing for, perhaps, I think it's kind of the elephant in the room in some ways, the biggest name in the world of New York Shakespeare, and that is the Public Theater and the Shakespeare in the Park at the Delacorte Theater in Central Park. In many ways, that is almost a level unto itself. They are the originators, in many senses, of what we now know as the annual custom of outdoor Shakespeare in New York, outdoor summer Shakespeare. They've been at it for about 60 years, and they are a destination. They are perhaps the biggest and best known Shakespeare festival in all of New York, and they're the ones that are, in my estimation at least, and we can ask our other guests what they think, but is at the top of the heap of name recognition and importance in the world of New York Shakespeare. So we give them our special recognition for all their efforts and for returning to summer Shakespeare in New York. We had a couple of discussions about outdoor Shakespeare in New York. Those, again, are available in our deep dive discussions, available on YouTube, on Instagram, and elsewhere. And we spoke with many of the groups around town about what importance or what help in their decision-making process it made that Shakespeare in the Park came back this past summer. And we'll be asking some of our other guests about that also. So we have our special recognition for the Shakespeare in the Park from the Delacorte Theater, from the Public Theater, that they had The Merry Wives this past summer. And that is actually available if you want to check it out on HBO and HBO Max. They have a documentary about that called... the name eludes me, but there's a wonderful documentary about that, and you can check that out on HBO or HBO Max about the return of Shakespeare in the Park. Our other awards, the first award category is for classes in education. You can check out our full list of nominees with a description of each one and the links to their websites. Our winner in that category is Soho Shakespeare. They offer a wonderful array of classes, and they have their monologue classes that's free, and they have a variety of Shakespeare 101, 201, and 301 classes, amongst other offerings available. They are in person and online, I think, as for the last time I spoke with them, so you can check that all out. Again, this is all available at newyorkshakespeare.wordpress.com. Our second award category, after our special recognition for the public and for the classes, is for our hardest worker. And we have 3 nominees in that category here tonight. Ty Jones, Karl, Cofield, and Debra and Byrd are all in that category amongst our hardest worker nominees. The winner in that category is our friend David Serrero, who is a multi-hyphenate opera singer / actor / producer / director / filmmaker. And he's literally all over the world. Our next category is for Shakespeare special events and festivals. Our winner in that category is the Hudson Valley Shakespeare Festival, and they had their final season in their longtime home at the Boscobel Restoration this past summer. They are moving into their new permanent location in the summer of 2022. That's coming up in just a few months, and they will be taking over a new space that has been generously donated to them by a wonderful patron of the arts. We look forward to seeing what's up next from the Hudson Valley Shakespeare Festival. In our next category, we have adaptations and modernizations. One of our nominees, Melissa Bell, is here. She's the writer behind Lady Capulet, and we had a number of different nominees in that category. Our winner for the best adaptation was Bedlam TV, and that is just a really different but very exciting series from the theatrical group Bedlam and Eric Tucker, along with Musa Gurnis, and they chop and slice and dice a variety of different Shakespeare texts and put it back together in an on-demand TV presentation that is really different. It's very weird, but it's really, really good. So I encourage you to check that out. Our next category is for Shakespeare solo shows, and we already announced that our winner is joining us here tonight. That's Debra and Byrd for Becoming Othello. We'll be speaking with her about that in just a couple of minutes. Our next category is for audio plays and podcasts. In 2020, at the height of the pandemic, we saw a lot of people moving into the radio play and audio play format. Some of that continued in 2021, but we saw more of a progression into the world of podcasting than into the realm of audio plays. Nonetheless, we had several different groups nominated. Our award went to the Byrd cast. It's Shakespeare, You Dick, from our friends Lisa Ann Goldsmith and Owen Thompson. And that's a really, really fun podcast, and you kind of forget that you're learning about some of the more mundane or more obscure aspects about Shakespeare because they deliver it to you in such a fun and easy breezy way. Our next category is for Shakespeare books. We announced that we have our winners in this category, Seth Duerr and Jared Kirby, for staging Shakespeare's Violence, and they'll be speaking to us later in this broadcast. We have our Lifetime Achievement Award. Next category goes to Christopher Carter Sanderson of Gorilla Rep, a pioneering downtown theatrical troupe that had presented A Midsummer Night's Dream and Macbeth and a variety of other plays downtown in Washington Square Park for about 25 years. They are innovators and pioneers in the way that outdoor Shakespeare is done. Their name is Gorilla Rep because it's a guerrilla style approach to staging theater, and Christopher Carter Sanderson himself wrote the book literally on guerrilla theater, which is taught at Yale and in other college campuses. That's our Lifetime Achievement Award. We have our Comedies Award. Goes to our friends at the Hudson Classical Theater Company, and that is for their presentation of Love's Labour's Lost. Our drama category, we already mentioned, goes to our friends at Classical Theater of Harlem, and that is for Seize the King, which is a variation on Richard III. We have our Best Director, and that goes to another one of our guests here tonight, that is Karl Cofield. And last but not least, we have our Best Actor, and that goes, as we mentioned, to Debra and Byrd for Becoming Othello. So we'll wrap that up there, and we will invite our first guest of the evening. If you have any thoughts, any questions, any comments, by all means, let us know. But in the meantime, we're going to ask our first guests of the evening, and that is going to be Ty Jones and Karl Cofield from the Classical Theater of Harlem. We'll ask them to join us. Let's see if we can find Ty Jones. Okay. When he's on, we'll ask Karl to join us as well. So as we're waiting for Ty and... Hello, Ty.
Hello, good evening.
How are you there?
I'm doing well, thank you.
All right, we will ask Karl to join us as well, so we can all chat together.
Okay.
All right. Oh, I see you're wearing the merch. Ty, you're wearing the CTH the sweater.
Yes. Yeah, you can go to cca.org if you'd like to order. Pretty cold out
That's
there. It's nice and
all right. So Ty, while we're waiting for Karl to join the discussion, tell us about Classical Theater of Harlem. How long has CTH been around?
CTH has been around since 1999. I've been a part of the organization since 2003 and took it over in 2009 when the financial crisis hit. At
Okay.
that point, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I hear you fine.
And and at that point, the organization had a number of deficits, not only in financial but in terms of leadership as well. So I stepped up because I wanted to save the company. I remember, and I still have this even today, about being that actor who was classically trained and wanted to be able to do these great plays in front of audiences that will probably look like the audience that's watching this show right now.
Right.
So been running it ever since, and now we're debt free, and I'm hopeful that there will be a possibility somewhere in the near future that we can actually look for a home. So
Okay.
we're having that's a long way off, but now we're starting to have conversations where we have to be painfully honest with ourselves to say, hey, look, we've been around for 20 years now, and many funders like sustainability, and
Hmm.
oftentimes sustainability is tethered to whether or not one has a home. So
Right.
we're look at the a strategic plan. Does it make sense for us to uh, find a home in that way? Right now, we're itinerant. We find a number of different places to try to do our productions, and we'll
Oh, well,
see.
here's Karl.
There he is.
Karl, how you doing there, my friend?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you both for joining me here tonight, and congratulations to you both for your awards for this wonderful production of Seize the King. So, Karl, as we were waiting for you to join the discussion, Ty was filling us into the history of CTH and kind of the ups and downs of taking over and getting it into the realm where it's going to be profitable and sustainable. And that's not an easy thing in the world of New York theater. I've had my own ups and downs in the world of theater here in the city, and finding a permanent, not forget for a permanent space, finding a reliable space, and especially something that's going to be sustainable, financially sustainable in terms of getting your audience to come on a consistent basis, that's going to be proper for the audience that you want to bring in. These are all very challenging things. So I know you guys are at the Marcus Garvey Park for the summer presentations. Oh, I think we lost Ty. So hopefully Ty will rejoin us. Ty, if you're out there, just send us a request to join, or once I see you again, I'll ask you to come back on. So Karl, as we're waiting for Ty to come back on, when did you get involved with the Classical Theater of Harlem?
So I've had the privilege of being there for, I think this is my eighth sort of collaboration with theater. I've been there. Um, I remember Ty as an actor and always being sort of in awe of his talent as an actor. And when he took over the Classical Theater of Harlem, I was going back to graduate school at Columbia University. And he said, "Hey, what are you doing? Why don't you come direct something for us?" And so that began the collaboration of Ty and I working together as director and producer, which I'm eternally grateful for. I owe Ty a huge debt of gratitude, and it's one of those things that just from the moment he said it felt so right to be able to be of service to the Harlem community, to bring arts and not make it solely transactional, but to do art with a purpose, to reinterpret Shakespeare, to reinterpret classics, just is a true blessing.
So, Ty, I remember you. I mean, I've been around the scene for a long time, and I've only met you in the last few months, but I've seen you around for forever and a day. You've been an actor in the scene for so long. You've been doing so many great things with CTH and with other groups around town, and just on doing your own thing. So you came in, you kind of you saw that the things weren't going the way they were supposed to go, and you decided you're going to take charge and push yourself to the position where you're responsible for making things move the way they're supposed to go. So now you're talking about how you've got great artists like Karl and the wonderful cast that you have for Seize the King. Uh, what is the process like? I know that finding a permanent space or a space that you're going to be in regularly, that in itself is a challenge, a huge challenge. But to take another step beyond that and to secure the funding for all the projects you're going to do, whether you're in a permanent space or you're moving from space to space, that's a bigger challenge as far as I'm concerned. So tell us about some of the logistical challenges that make this all happen.
You articulated many of them, which is finding rehearsal space, finding a theater that's available, finding a theater in time to sort of match whatever the aesthetic of that particular director. It's mainly Karl, frankly speaking. But are we going to have a proscenium stage? Is it going to be a thrust? And how are we going to create our show? What are the designers? What's the work that they're going to have to do to get from page to stage? Funding. So for a number of years, we basically would get funding for as opposed to getting multiple year grants. So we made it really strong a few years back. Funders is like, look, if indeed you believe in us and believe in the ideas, the buzzwords around diversity, equity, and inclusion, come see our work, and hopefully we can enroll you that way. And but what I found very challenging over the few years is constantly trying to budget things when you only knew you were getting a grant a year at a time.
Right.
So you're hoping that the next year. So it was hard to plan for a couple seasons because you just didn't know where that money was. So I couldn't.
Right.
There were times where I wanted to take the risk, but chose not to, and we wouldn't do a show. And that's just the way it goes because I was more mortgaging the company by taking risks. So as a theater company that we are, I'm of the mind. Sort of my operational philosophy is that we don't have room to fail. So we have to be very judicious with every single decision that we make.
Right. Yeah, and at this, that's a really difficult thing to balance because you want to do enough work to keep yourself out in front of the audience, keep your staff and your actors and your crew, everyone that's involved with the company, active, working, presenting stuff to the audience, but you have to do it in such a way that you're not pushing past your financial limits, your limits in terms of what the company can afford to do beyond monetary, just in the general sense, what the company can take on at that time. So right now, this past summer, you guys were in Marcus Garvey Park, up in Harlem, and when I came out, it was just a huge audience that was really just totally engaged with the show. So what's been the process with all the ups and downs of building that audience and make sure that they keep on coming back?
Obviously, this year was a little bit different. This past year, the simple steps, the practical steps that we took was we did surveys, and we did several surveys. Hit all of our social media pages. We also hit our blast lists and asked people to, give us their opinions, how they feel of going outdoors. Given some of the decisions that the leaders were making around C19. Where do you stand? You trust that CTH is going to deliver. We took that data, and internally we talked to each other. We were like, let's go for it. I'll tell you right now, this last year was the first time I did not have fun doing a summer show, but a lot of it had to do with being worried that there was going to be that might test positive.
Right.
And then I would have to consider shutting down the whole show, stuff like that.
Right.
We were fortunate, didn't happen. We were the first.
Ty Okay, I think he might be back, but oh, here you are. We lost you for a second, Ty. I'm sorry.
So I don't know what the last thing I think I heard. I think you heard me. I said classical theater was the first to open live outdoor.
To finish that thought,
Yeah, please.
Classical Theater of Harlem was the first in New York to bring live theater back, which is for a company of our size a huge accomplishment. And I think that's a testament to Ty's leadership of the company, being judicious and being very thoughtful about how to put one step in front of the other, to launch something, to have to be bold in leadership like that in a time of huge uncertainty is just a testament to Ty's leadership.
So at what point in the year, the public, if I remember, announced, maybe it was like mid-March, that they were doing Shakespeare in the Park again? And we had a couple of discussions about outdoor Shakespeare in New York with a number of the different outdoor troupes around town. And the consensus pretty much was that, okay, well, as much as we love the public, we do our own thing. But the fact that they gave the green light was kind of like the bellwether that, okay, it's happening. We're all doing it this year. Let's really go for it and do it. Did that have anything to do with your decision to get back on stage outdoors?
No, we were independent in our decision. So,
Okay.
and I don't know if you heard me say this, but we were the first to open live outdoor theater last year. We were the first.
Right, you mentioned that. So this production of Seize the King, it's an adaptation of Richard III, written by Will Power. How far in advance of announcing and getting on stage, being the first ones back out there in the public doing outdoor Shakespeare, how far in advance are you working with Will to take this adaptation and to decide to mount it on stage?
Yeah, well, fortunately, we have a track record.
Well, I'll let Karl
yeah
jump in here.
Yeah, we've been collaborating. We've collaborated before, and so the idea of collaborating on Will's Seize the King seemed like a no-brainer. And we had already put that in motion. COVID disrupted that, but we kept the dialogue going, and we felt confident, especially once we got our amazing team of actors, our designers, and talking with Ty, who ultimately greenlit it. We felt tremendously a sense of duty, and I don't mean that in a pejorative, in sort of like a hyperbolic way. We really wanted to get back to the community, because the survey that Ty was talking about, people were starving to be in community again, and that's
Right.
one of the hallmarks of Classical Theater of Harlem. We have no barriers to entry. Anybody can come, and that's the true sense of, like, when you take it back to Shakespearean time, the Globe, and everybody's just there to be in community, to be to take in the event together. And that was something that was sorely missing at the time. And we felt at CTH, what a tremendous way to fill the void with the things we do best: art and community. And so, talking with Will, we got everything worked out, and we agreed that we in fact were going to basically stake our put our pole in the ground and say, here, New York theater is back, and CTH is leading the way. So we're tremendously proud of that.
Okay. Now, Karl, you are a very busy man yourself. You are a teacher at NYU and at Yale. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah, I appreciate you doing that due diligence. Yeah, I was at Yale. I've since left, and am now at NYU Graduate Acting Program. Proud to be there.
All right. So you're quite busy. You're doing a lot of different things. At what point?
He's the chair of the program. Sorry to interrupt you. He's the chair of the program.
He's the chair of the program
at NYU.
So forget being a teacher. He's the chair of the program. Those are
chair of the program.
That's not a small thing. that's a big responsibility. So how do you divide your time between that and such a big undertaking as Seize the King, getting back out to?
Yeah, well, going into NYU and going into any other theater or any other production, they know my position with CTH. CTH is not just it's not a gig, it's not a job, it's something that I firmly believe in, and that has given me a tremendous platform, and something that I truly value as and I don't mean this in a negative way, to really be of service. And to me, that's the ultimate thing, because I believe in the power that theater can really transform people's lives. And I'm here to testify about that because it changed my life. So going into NYU, that was made explicitly clear that, that was like a non-negotiable, that CTH, Classical Theater of Harlem, was a non-negotiable. If there was a path forward that we could figure out a creative way to do both, I would be interested in that, because I do believe in training the next generation of theater maker, which I have the privilege and honor to do at NYU, but also to put that into practicum, to put that into practice, so that when people who don't necessarily look Hollywood come out of NYU, they have a place like a CTH where they can go and apply what they've been learning for all these years and put it into practice, and not just theory. So to me, they go hand in hand, much
So,
like,
so you're not just busy enough being the chair at the NYU program over there. You're not just busy enough doing this amazing show with Ty at CTH. You took a little skip down to St. Louis and did the King Lear with Andre de Shields at the St. Louis Shakespeare Festival, somewhere in the middle there.
yeah, yeah. As any artist watching, or anybody in your audience will know, for an artist, it's feast or famine existence, right? So there's plenty of times when, the phone isn't ringing, but, if you're blessed and things work out, sometimes you have an abundance of work to choose from. So for that, I'm truly grateful that I was in a position to be able to, grapple with King Lear, with Andre de Shields. Those type of opportunities don't come around that often. So when they do, hopefully you're primed, you're in a position. CTH, Ty was gracious enough to let me go out, because CTH is an all hands on deck institution. We're all in it. We all are hyphenated. Ty is not only the producing artistic director, Ty is out there the greeter, and when it's raining, everybody has a squeegee, and we're wiping down the thing. So to allow me to spread the gospel of CTH and how we interpret classics in a place like St. Louis is something that I'm really grateful for, because to me, that's what it is. It's being an ambassador wherever you go, that we fly the flag of CTH and how we create theater.
So I have to tell you, Karl, I was really, truly impressed by both productions. King Lear was fantastic, and Seize the King was just amazing. And something about it, I mean, the individual performances, Robati, Alicia Espinosa, R.J. Foster, the whole cast, and it's a small cast, but each one of them just amazing. But for me, it was just a really, really crisp direction, and also the visuals were really, really outstanding. You had each set piece that would come on and off. There was one part where you had a bathtub come on and off, and you had like what do you call that? The garden that's the very manicured garden come on and off, and each one, not only was it visually very appealing what was coming on and off the stage, but what I really appreciated was that each piece that came on and off, your actors did something important with it. It somehow contributed to the action that was being performed on stage, and it enhanced the dialogue. It gave something even greater, to an urgency to what was being spoken on stage. So tell us about this basis, this wonderful visual style that you have, Karl.
Well, thank you for saying that. And you touched on a couple of two areas that I definitely want to touch on. I'm one of the luckiest guys in the business. We have an amazing company of actors, and you named some, and Andrea Patterson and Carson Elrod, and the list goes on and on. But you're absolutely right. It starts with fantastic collaborators, and so we were blessed tremendously by our cast and by our designers. I'm here to say we have some of the best designers in the business, and that I'm grateful that they continue to collaborate with us. Um, and so, much like any project, when we start, I start dreaming about how I dream of the play, and I challenge our collaborators and throw out ideas. Sometimes they're like, "Yeah, Karl, hold your role," like that's a bridge too far. But most times, more often than not, my designers will come back and exceed those expectations. And their creativity, their artistry, their brilliance is on full display. And I am so thankful that larger audiences are getting to see what I've known for a long time. When I get most projects I work on, one call I'm making immediately is Christopher and Justin Swader, some of my oldest collaborators. They're a scenic design team. You know, Mika Eubanks and I go back to Yale Rep, with Brittany Bland, who did projections, Fred Kennedy, who does the music, Sam Schaffner does the props. Alan Edwards is one of my longest collaborators, who does electrics and lights for us. So all of these collaborators basically is what I love about what we do the most. And I think more and more COVID has shown us, when you get small groups of people together, no matter what the barriers are, whether it's on Zoom, whether you can't come in, and they're really dedicated to a project, and they're really smart, and they're really creative, they'll find a way to make it work.
Right.
And
That's a great through line, because I think that's something that really came through in the COVID year, and especially once we got back onto the stages, is that during the year that everything was shut down, you had to, ingenuity is necessity is the mother of invention, right? So you had to figure out new ways to express what you wanted to express. And then once you had the stages available to you, again, all that pent up energy, all that stuff that you figured out and waited on and ruminated about over the past year, suddenly had to find a manner of expression.
for sure.
All right, so now you guys were about to remount. You had announced the remount of Seize the King coming up in, I think it was supposed to be in March, right? With NYU Skirball, is that right? And then,
That's correct.
so what's the prognosis? What's the latest on that situation?
So the leadership decided, due to SARS-CoV-2, that they are shutting down everything throughout the entire month of March.
Okay.
So all those great people like Alicia Espinosa and RJ and Robody, and we were ready to get everything started back up again. But don't sleep on Seize the King. There just may be somewhere down the line, there might be another. I'm not making any promises, because I imagine some people are on this live right now going like, huh? But Karl and I are actually looking at a possibility of still extending Seize the King. There's no announcement here. Let me just say that now. There's no announcement here. But one of the things that I've been super proud about, particularly over the last couple of years, due to the work that Karl has, his aesthetic, particularly, which has been oftentimes the frame from which CTH does its work. The visibility of CTH has grown dramatically. So we've gotten, just in the past 12 months, some national opportunities and even some international opportunities. Now, the thing about it is that we're a small company. Our budget is a little over $1 million. And so those opportunities, we have to be judicious about them. If we can get the appropriate funding, then yeah, we'll go for it. But I think Karl will agree with me that there have been several where we are just going to have to say no. That there's only so much we can do.
Right.
But the thing about it is that there's great opportunities to always find other theaters to get these plays done. It's still about the plays.
Right.
The play's the thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm thrilled that we've been able to have someone like Karl on board with CTH in a way that moves people in profound ways, pleasurable ways, measurable ways. Really lucky. I'm hopeful for this upcoming summer, this fall, actually this entire fiscal year that's coming up. I hope that there will be a chance. We already punch above our weight. We hope that there'll be something really special coming out of 2022, 2023. So keep your eyes open.
All right. Well, we're going to be reporting on it and keeping our eyes peeled. We are hoping for and waiting for all the next things that are coming up from the Classical Theater of Harlem. Ty Jones, Karl Cofield, we thank you both so much for giving us so much time here tonight. And we congratulate you on Seize the King, on the awards for Best Drama and Best Director. It was a fantastic show, and I hope somehow, some way, that the audience gets a chance to take another look at this wonderful show. Thank you both very much. How can people find Classical Theater of Harlem?
Classical Theater of Harlem, we can be found on Instagram at Classical Harlem. We can be found on Facebook at Classical Theater of Harlem, and we can found on Twitter at Classical Harlem. Also, would like to say that you can find Karl. Karl, why don't you go ahead and give your deets too? We'll make sure everybody knows.
Well, thank you for having us, and I really appreciate you giving us the award and the platform. Just Karl Cofield across all social media platforms, and on Twitter, I think it's Captain Karl06.
All right. Well, gentlemen, thank you very much. Have a wonderful.
I want to congratulate all the folks too. Debra Ann, we love you. So thank you for the time.
Thank you, gentlemen. Have a great night. Congratulations.
Take care.
Thank you.
Okay, so that was Ty Jones and Karl Cofield from the Classical Theater of Harlem. They won 2 of our top awards, the Best Drama and the Best Director for Seize the King. That's their variation on Richard III, written by or adapted by Will Power, and with a wonderful cast. Again, that's Classical Theater of Harlem. Let us go to another entity from Harlem, the founder of the Harlem Shakespeare Festival, and our multiple award winner here, and that is Debra Ann Byrd. Let us invite her to join us here tonight. Okay, Debra Ann Byrd is, as I mentioned, the founder of another great entity from Harlem, the Harlem Shakespeare Festival, and she has been touring with her one-woman show. Hello, Debra Ann.
Hello there. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well.
All right. So, Debra Ann, we just spoke with the gentleman, Ty and Karl from Classical Theater of Harlem, and you are the founder of the Harlem Shakespeare Festival.
Absolutely, yes.
Remind us, when did the Harlem Shakespeare Festival get started?
The Harlem Shakespeare Festival got started in summer 2013.
Okay, all right. Now, you've been touring with your one-woman show, Becoming Othello. Has Harlem Shakespeare maintained activity in that time, or are you, is it more about Becoming Othello at this point?
Well, I've been doing a whole lot of Becoming Othello, but still Harlem Shakespeare has been trying to stay active. Of course, through me performing Becoming Othello at certain venues and certain partnerships, but also last year during the crazy COVID time when everyone was indoors and we were going Zoom bound, we produced maybe 3 or 4 or 5, 6. we produced 6 events online. We did our The Importance of Being Earnest and our all-female Othello, and another show called Just About Love. And then we showed the Broadway. See, I am predicting and hoping the Broadway, the world virtual premiere of Becoming Othello. We did that as well with the, what's their beautiful names? The National Arts Club.
Right.
We've been having fun like that, making many collaborations with other Harlem entities.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. But the name of the game for you is Becoming Othello, and that is your autobiographical one-woman show, which for us won Best Solo Show and Best Actor for yourself. It is a command performance. It's all about your own journey in the world of Shakespeare and finding your place, finding your voice in more than one way, finding your own voice as an actor and the voice of Othello. Why don't you give us a quick wrap-up of what the process of putting together Becoming Othello has been about?
Well, Becoming Othello has been a tremendous journey in and of itself. The writing of it, the researching of it. It has been really interesting and challenging and wonderful and scary and all of those things all rolled up together. You know, we started in 2017. Becoming writer in residence at the Shakespeare Birthplace Trust. And I went there to Stratford-upon-Avon and worked in the archives on all things Othello, and also trying to hash out and figure out what my story actually was. What is it that I was really trying to write? What is it that I was really trying to say? What is it that I was trying to share with audiences? And so we worked on that really diligently back in 2017. And I told them at that time that the deal was I would come back in 2019, October, and have a script that was prepared and ready to go. I was also working on a memoir at the same time. So it's a hybrid memoir. The memoir is, of course, about becoming Othello and an actor's journey to the stage, Shakespeare and race, Shakespeare and gender, and all of that good stuff. But it also has some really wonderful things in it, including lists of all female Othellos or female Othellos throughout time. I was lucky enough at the Folger. I became a Folger artist in residence at the Folger in 2018. And I found the first female Othello there. And that was really great. And so that is going to be a part of the memoir as well. It's also right now still called Becoming Othello, A Black Girl's Journey. And so I'm working diligently on that right now. We have been a little bit of everywhere with Becoming Othello. It is my personal story, but it is also a story that many people understand and many people, it speaks to the hearts of many folks. It is, if I can say, a story about overcoming, a story about persevering, a story about love, self-love. You know,
Yeah.
It is a story about acceptance of oneself. It is a story that's helping people to understand who they are, who they might be, who they might want to be. There's a lot of twists and turns in it, and over 200 Shakespeare lines as well.
Yeah,
And
I think
it's a beautiful thing.
it's absolutely, for me, one of the most challenging moments in the play, not in terms of it being difficult to understand, but difficult to sit through because it's just so raw, so painful, is part of the process where you're talking about the abusive relationships you were in and how you got yourself out and how you stepped past that and moved up and went and put that pain aside and went and created from a place of pain to a place of creation. So you really had some very deep aspects of your personal journey in there as well. As in the past year, you mentioned that you've been all over the place. You've been have you been in every continent except for Antarctica?
No, I haven't. You know, when COVID first started, I was on what I was calling my first looks tour, and I was in Arizona and really trying to figure out, what is this play? Does it work? Do audiences understand? I was working on it like that. And then of course COVID came, and at the time I was prepared to go to at least 13 different venues with the show. But of course all of that got either put down or canceled or postponed or something like that. And so I haven't been everywhere, as many places as we were looking at going, because of, you know, the pandemic that we're in right now. But of course there are still ideas on the table about where we might be able to go. But in the meantime, last summer I performed Becoming Othello at Shakespeare and Company up in Lenox, Massachusetts. And of course we went over to Richmond, Indiana, and I've been at many universities speaking to the kids, either whether or not I was live or if I sent ahead our recorded version of Becoming Othello, because the schools, the universities, and the professors seem to really like the show. They really like what it's saying to the world right now. They like what it's saying to their community of students, especially having to do with the Shakespeare and gender. And of course, Shakespeare and race. And so since all of that is really prevalent and front and center, because when I transformed to become Othello, I changed myself from a very feminine person into a very masculine person, and what that looked like in the world. So that was really interesting and very challenging. We've been in many places. I just came back from Prague. We performed in Prague in December. And we've been a little bit of everywhere, Ohio, a little bit of everywhere, trying to become Othello. And it's been very interesting and wonderful challenge. Of course, last summer we also did Lincoln Center in collaboration with Harlem Week and the Harlem Arts Alliance. Absolutely. That was really a great time.
So Becoming Othello, for those who haven't had a chance to see it, but if you haven't seen it, I definitely recommend you find it. As Debra said, she does have a recording of it available, but it's touring from place to place. becoming Othello, it's your process of what you were told at some point early on in your career that you shouldn't be attempting to pursue Shakespeare. You should pursue what kind of shows should you pursue as opposed to Shakespeare?
Well, if I said in the show, one of the people in my world who was a bona fide leading theatrical agent, she said to me, Debra Ann, with your facility for language, perhaps you should try your hand at August Wilson.
Right.
So between her and another professor, they both were really trying to help me understand that a career in the classics for a person of color was going to be, if nothing more, non-existent or very difficult challenge. I didn't like that idea. And so I set out to do what I call change the face of American classical theater. And I started a company, Take Wing and Soar Productions, back in 2002. And we were formed to create center stage opportunities for classically trained actors of color, which was very, very important. Now in the world, we see that the world is shifting, especially these past 2 years with Black Lives Matter, and we see white American theater and COVID and all those things that caused our world to be all shaken up. So now when we look at our stages, they look, people like places like the Joe Pack Public Theater has always had mixed race cast, Shakespeare and Company the same, Oregon Shakespeare the same, Southwest Shakespeare the same, but there are many organizations who still are not mixing the cast or giving certain artists opportunities. But we see shifts happening. We see that as these students come out of the MFA programs and the BFA programs, like myself back 20 years ago, things have shifted and are still continuing to shift. I think we still have a ways to go, but I also think that I'm seeing a lot of shifting and changing, especially in the leadership. People who actually, people of color, Asian, Black, Hispanic, who actually are the leaders of Shakespeare companies now, who are in management positions and also founders of these kinds of organizations that produce Shakespeare and the classics. And it's been really wonderful to watch the changes, to watch the shifts. Right. It's been really interesting and wonderful. Yes.
Yeah. Whether in New York or in DC or
across the globe, it's happening
all over the place. And we're seeing more diversity, more different voices, different cultural representation being incorporated into. I think that was one of the big through lines from the STA, the Shakespeare Theater Association. From that discussion that happened earlier this month was what is the direction that Shakespeare needs to go into to keep audiences in 2022, multicultural audiences, engaged and to invite them to not have an experience like you had where people were dismissive of you as a Black woman, but as a way to encourage audiences, whatever color, whatever cultural background they're from, to embrace Shakespeare and to want to explore and know more about Shakespeare.
Absolutely. I mean, that is why we formed Take Wing and Tour Productions, to not only just give these artists center stage opportunities, but so that audiences could see them, so that practitioners could see them, so that producers could see them, so that we can see that these artists, they are just as well trained as any other artist, and that these artists deserve opportunities to practice their craft. And so we have seen over the years that it has shifted. It has changed a lot. Of course, there's still a ways to go, but looking over the past 20 years, being the stand and the charge and really working to talk to producers one-on-one when we could, talk to different people in New York at major arts institutions, going to the National Arts Club, going to the League of Professional Theater Women, going wherever there were people who were the producers of these works, and really trying to have conversations that open up opportunities for us to sit down and to just discuss, and for us to figure out, how do we make America a better place, somewhere where artists feel welcome, no matter if it's race or if it's ability, or what have you. And so it's been really, I think I keep saying but I want to say but it's been really beautiful, if you will, to see folks coming together and sitting down and trying to figure out, how do we do this all together? How do we take what we love and how do we go from that space to create a better world for all of us? Absolutely.
And you are going to be doing that in a new way. You have just been announced a couple of weeks ago as the new artistic director for the Southwest Shakespeare Festival. Right? Congratulations to you.
Absolutely. The Southwest Shakespeare Company. We are here in beautiful Mesa, Arizona, in residence at the Mesa Arts Center. And I am new here. I am brand new. Of course, I came out here in 2019 to do a collaboration with the Southwest Shakespeare Company and Harlem Shakespeare Festival. Together, we produced the all-female Othello on a beautiful collaboration. And since that time, I had been artist in residence at Southwest Shakespeare. And the position opened up for artistic director. And they called me and said, Debra, would you like to come out here and try this? And I'm like, okay.
So does this
And
mean
so,
that Debra and Byrd are one of our top voices here in New York City has fled the scene and is going to be in Arizona going forward?
well, I haven't totally fled the scene yet. This is our 20th anniversary for Take Wing and Shore Harlem Shakespeare. And so it's time for a great big celebration. And so we're figuring out and planning and working out, myself and Vosa Rivers and Jackie Jeffries and Natalie Clark and Tom Martin and Dathan B. Williams. We're working on, and Norman Anthony Small, we're working on figuring out what it looks like to have a 20-year celebration. We'll have a pre-celebration at the Spirit of Excellence Awards in May there at the National Arts Club in New York City. And announcement will be coming out soon. And the season, whatever that looks like for the Harlem Shakespeare Festival, will also be announced soon. And then we'll see what happens from there. How we hand the reins over to the next person who's going to run the Harlem Shakespeare Festival. But right now, I'm still working to get to that 20-year anniversary announcement and then those parties and just be able to I'm just really excited about being able to celebrate all that we've been able to see, to learn, to understand. All the artists that have come into our lives that we've been blessed to work with, so many people, so many lives affected by just the thought to say, let's see how we can shift the planet. And it's been really beautiful, and it's 20 years now. So I think it's time for a little bit of celebrating as well as bringing some wonderful show to Harlem this summer.
Debra Ann, I congratulate you for so many things, for the Southwest Company for being named our new artistic director for the 20th anniversary of Take Wing and Soar and Harlem Shakespeare, and of course for becoming Othello and all the success you've had with there. So congratulations, Debra. All the best in this new venture, and we hope that we get to see you in New York once again with becoming Othello and with all the other things that you have in store. I'm sure there's a lot of exciting things coming up soon. Where can people find you and becoming Othello?
Well, you can find me on Becoming Othello on Instagram, Becoming Othello on Facebook, Debra and Byrd on Facebook, Classically Dab on Instagram. You can find me. And I just want to say thank you so much, Rodney. I really appreciate you and New York Shakespeare and all the work you're doing to share Shakespeare with New York and share information about all of the Shakespeare producers and performers and writers in New York City. We thank you so much, not just the city, the state as well. Thank you so much, Rodney. I appreciate the honors and awards that you have bestowed upon me, and I say thank you and God bless.
Thank you so much, Debra, and have a wonderful night. We'll be in touch soon.
Absolutely. Bye-bye.
All right, so that was Debra Ann Byrd, becoming Othello of Take Wing and Soar Productions and of the Harlem Shakespeare Festival, and now of the Southwest Shakespeare Company, the new artistic director. We are at 10:30. We got maybe too involved with our discussions with our friends Ty Jones and Karl Cofield and with Debra Ann Byrd. We're having so much fun, but we have one more set of guests for us here tonight, and that is the winners of Best Book for Staging Shakespeare's Violence. Let us invite Jared, Kirby, and Seth Duerr to join us as we head into overtime. That is for Jared. For those who are just joining us, we have a couple people that just joined us. Hello, Jared.
Hey, how are you?
I'm doing fine. How are you, sir?
Excellent.
All right, let me ask Seth to join us as well. All right, so Jared, you, by the way, hello, Seth.
Hey, how are you?
I'm doing fine. How are you?
Good. I'm going to just interject real quickly. I'm going to hijack your show. Two
Go ahead.
bits of housekeeping.
Go ahead.
One, the HBO documentary you were talking about, Mary Wise of Windsor, is called Reopening Night. I highly
Reopening
recommend
Night.
it.
That's
It's
right.
fantastic. Second bit of business is just a hello to Debra Ann, because we started our theater companies 20 years ago in college at the same time together. And we drove everyone nuts because we would monopolize every single copy machine. So if anyone was ever trying to print a script, any poor director or other actors needed to, they would go like, well, no, Debra Ann and Seth are in there, so we're never going to get anything done.
I was actually rewatching an interview that you and I had a year or so ago. And did you and Debra work on a production of Hamlet together at some point?
We did, yeah. I worked with, so she started Takeaway in Store in 2002, and I then joined a production of Hamlet she was doing in 2007 with Timothy Stickney as Hamlet and Arthur French as Polonius. And I came in as Claudius as a replacement last minute, a week before one of the actors dropped, the actor playing Claudius. And I had worked with the director, Liz Swain, a bunch of times in school. And she says, Seth, she calls me up one morning. She says, Seth, you're the only person I know who's insane enough to say yes to this. Would you come play Claudius with a week of rehearsal? I know you hate the play, but would you come do it? And I said, well, it's convenient because Claudius hates Hamlet too, so I can just channel that in. And I can't stand a long rehearsal period, so please, let's sign me right up. And yeah, so we got to work together for a few weeks. Yeah.
That's wonderful. All right, so Seth, you are the in addition to the we'll get to the book in a minute, but you are, as we mentioned in one of our previous interviews, you are the founder of the York Shakespeare Company, and Jared, you are the fight coordinator extraordinaire. Your group is the New York Combat for Stage and Screen.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and you're also the resident fight director for our winners for Best Comedy, Hudson Classical Theater Company.
Yeah.
All right, so you two have both been around the scene in New York here for good long time. Good. Let's
We both had hair.
We both had hair when we first
We met.
Shakespeare took it off of you, right? Shakespeare knocked them all off your head.
That's what happens, yeah.
That's what happens. But anyway, you guys. The point is, you guys have been around the scene for a long time. You really know what's happening and what's what in the world of New York Shakespeare, with your respective companies, with your respective work with the different groups around town. Seth, I think you're a veteran of pretty much every classical troupe that's been in New York in the last 25 years. But you guys have done a ton of work around town, and your most recent project is this monumental book, Staging Shakespeare's Violence. So tell us about how this book came about.
Jared, it's your fault. You explain it.
So I had this idea, especially when I was a young fight director, when I was starting to get work with different Shakespeare shows. I didn't know them all, and I was looking for resources that would help me tap right into what are the fight moments that I need to know about this play or that play. And it doesn't exist. So that kind of planted a seed in the back of my head that would be if it was a helpful thing for me, it'd be a helpful thing in general. And then when Seth and I started working together, it kind of opened this door to thinking about the fights and the language and looking at Shakespeare to give us clues into how the fights should be choreographed, if any existed. So, God, what was it, like 2009, I think, or something, where I approached Seth and said, I want to do a series of classes, which we called Shakespeare's Swords, or for him, it was Shakespeare's Words.
We put the S in parentheses like it was, the Sean Connery bit on Jeopardy.
Right.
It's S words.
And so we did these classes where Seth would tackle the text, and work with the actors on that. And I would bring the violence. And one of the things that made it so much fun is we always chose scenes that you wouldn't necessarily think of as violent. My favorite memories are the outside the banquet in Macker's when he's decided not to kill the king. That was a scene that we wanted to explore. What are violent opportunities here? And Margaret in York, that was another memorable one. Then I said, this class, the way that this is all structured, it's great. We should get this all in a book to help people really see some of the opportunities that exist in these plays, the potential violence, and then also outline obviously the explicit or implicit violence as well. And so Seth said no. And I was like, well, that's good. I don't have time to do that anyway. And then I told a bunch of people about the idea and said, y'all should do this. It'd be really helpful. And then nobody did. So I came back to Seth and said, we got to do this. And
I had no idea there were other people.
No, there weren't. Nobody ever said yes. I was
No,
just
I mean,
like,
that you ever asked anyone else.
oh, no, just like fight directors and stuff. I was like, hey, wouldn't this be a great thing to exist? I tried all kinds of angles to get other fight directors to do this so we wouldn't have to.
And then he just plied me with scotch, and that ended up working. Who figured?
So, and here we are.
Yes.
So Jared, you've published other books about stage combat. I think you have maybe, if the last I counted, maybe it was like a half a dozen or something like that.
He'd love to tell you about them.
It's a running joke in Staging Shakespeare's Violence. But yeah, actually, my other books are all around historical fencing. So Capoferro, a republication of Angelo. Saviolo's book is my third one, called The Gentleman's Guide to Dueling. Mm-hmm. And that one comes up a lot in Staging Shakespeare's Violence because it's relevant and I wanted to.
Yeah, you guys were very generous to have a copy of your book. Unfortunately, it is about 10 feet away from me right now. So I can't reach it to show it on screen.
You hold his attention, dude.
Okay. That's like telling somebody to tell me a joke, and then you can't think of a single thing.
I know. Here you go. Staging Shakespeare. There it is. And it's a fantastic book. And for me, just you can even see it just in these couple of minutes that you guys are discussing how the book was put together, is that there's really wonderful back and forth between you two. Because Jared, you come from the background of the stage combat director, the fight director, fight coordinator, and Seth, you come from the kind of not opposite, but from a different place.
I come from an insane asylum.
Of being the director, the actor. So there's this like back and forth that's really entertaining, and it's of course it's educational. There's it's almost like an encyclopedia. They can say, okay, as you said, Macbeth, this scene, Hamlet, this scene, I would do this here, I would do that here. But it's also the entertainment of you two going back and forth with each other and almost arguing about what's the best way to present this fight scenario.
Well, it could have gotten very clinical, and it does get in some bits, but so I'm more like a color commentary guy, especially the more technically intricate Jared gets on certain things. I usually will pull in the other direction, and then vice versa. If I get crazy on tech stuff, and then I'll be like, "Can we calm down, please?" So yeah, there's a nice balance because you have to make it a good read, especially because the publisher broke it up into 2 volumes. So we still have another volume to write. This is just the first one, and it's very, if nothing else, heavy. So great paperweight. But yeah, the back and forth is my favorite thing about the book. We tried writing a book we would want to read. So yes, it's easy to just jump to any scene in any play, and we'll give you ideas and ask you questions about whatever's going on about the given circumstances, get into character psychology, getting into the technical aspects of any of the violence. We do all that, but at the same time, we spend an entire page arguing about the paper crown in Henry VI-3.
Right,
whether
because
it's
there's no
actually a paper crown
crown
or not. We spent a
on
page
the
on that.
battlefield.
He was
So
going back and forth and nitpicking, and he's so very, very wrong, but go ahead.
So I think it's an element we wanted to capture in the book because as we were writing this, there's a danger of, at least for me, I think it's a danger is for people to think, here's the answers, right? And we wanted to make sure that that people weren't approaching the material that way. This is a book that presents a lot of violent opportunities. How can you use violence to enhance your story and reveal character? And maybe it's not the right choice for your production, but by making that choice that it's not the right choice, you've already made a stronger choice for your characters and for your show. Plus, we're in an increasingly polarized society that thinks we have to agree, and that's just not true, right? We can have different opinions and still respect each other.
Nonsense.
I didn't say like each other. I said respect each other.
But yeah, I totally hear your point. So guys, this book, it took you how long to put together this first section of 2?
Well, I famously do not do anything on spec. So it took, 10 years for us to do 3 chapters for a treatment to get out to the publisher. And then once we had a contract, suddenly a busy little bee. We wrote another 17 chapters inside of like 2 years or whatever it was. But and then this next one, we're supposed to be doing it now. I've written much of my parts of it.
Seth does really great work. It looks beautiful.
So here's a question, guys. All the different scenarios that you talk through and you kind of argue back and forth as to what's in some ways you speak to each other, you argue. It's this wonderful dialogue. How much of it is based in the actual plays that you did on stage at some point, and how much of it is just textual? How much is doesn't have that background to it?
I mean, I think the chapter Jared and I are most proud of, and I can speak for him because I'm the authority on all things, is chapter 3, which is Macbeth. I love that chapter. I'm sorry, chapter 4. It's chapter 4. Chapter 3 is Hamlet. It's terrible. Don't read it. But Macbeth, we worked on together in 2010. We have a lot of thoughts about it, and it's our deepest dive, I think, in the book. And just the most entertaining. And I wish, the only regret I have is that we published before the new film came out, because I would have had some things to say.
Because we needed more words in the book.
Yeah, exactly. But anyhow, to answer your question, anywhere we have experience working together, we go and we describe it pretty intricately. We don't pull any punches or dance around anything. And we'll do that again in volume 2. We worked on Titus Andronicus together, so I think we're going to have a lot to say in that chapter. We both love that play as well. So, yeah.
Okay, and the second chapter that you guys or second the volume that you're working on is going to be all the plays that are set outside of the main area. That's going
outside of the UK. So like the further and further Shakespeare had to go. So to put plays in locations that wouldn't necessarily get him censored as frequently as he might if they were set in the UK.
Right.
So all the Roman tragedies. Anything in Italy, Greece, all of that stuff is right. In the second volume.
The late romances that are Pericles and Tempest and all those kind of things.
Absolutely, yes.
Right. Okay. All right, guys. So I think the book is fantastic. You got our award for best book, and I couldn't recommend it more highly. Where can people find it if they want to pick up a copy?
Every major retailer. It's on Amazon and Google and Barnes & Noble. But we would encourage, the Royal, we would encourage people to call their small bookshops if they have ones that they're fans of and ask them to stock it, please.
Okay. No, before we let you go, guys, this is such a wonderful resource. Our theater companies, our colleges, our other kind of institutions that teach Shakespeare or put Shakespeare on stage, they've been reaching out to you about making this one of their main texts from which to base their stage combat?
I mean, we hope so.
Yeah.
I've been sending it out, you know, to a lot of different places in the hopes of that occurring. But yeah, we're still in very, very early stages.
All
So
right.
I think we have maybe like 16 Amazon reviews right now. So we need people to go get the book and spread the word, because it is actually very funny, besides being a great resource in a rehearsal room.
You're going to slap the New York Shakespeare Award on there, and that's all going to, just like that.
I mean, I'll put it on the good half of the book, yes.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. You guys are fantastic. The book is amazing. Staging Shakespeare's Violence from Seth Duerr and Jared Kirby. Thank you both for joining me here tonight. I wish you all the best, and we're waiting to see very soon with bated breath when Volume 2 is going to come out.
Hopefully we'll still be alive.
Don't hold your breath.
All right, gentlemen. Thank you very much. Have a great night.
Right.
Bye. Good night.
Okay. So that was Jared Kirby, and that was Seth Duerr from Staging Shakespeare's Violence. My Cue to Fight, Domestic Fury, as I believe that's the full title. So we had a wonderful series of guests tonight. We had Ty Jones and Karl Cofield of the Classical Theater of Harlem. We had Debra and Byrd of Take Wing and Soar Productions, of the Harlem Shakespeare Festival, of Becoming Othello, and now the brand new artistic director of the Southwest Shakespeare Company down in Arizona. And we had Seth Duerr and Jared Kirby of the book Staging Shakespeare's Violence, My Cue to Fight, Domestic Fury. That's a mouthful, but it's a fantastic book, and these are all our top award winners for the New York Shakespeare Awards. If you want to go back and check out the full blog with all the information about our nominees, all of our winners, all the links to our different videos and our social media locations, and all of our commentary about what's been happening in the world of New York Shakespeare in 2021 and what's ahead of us in 2022, you can catch that all at newyorkshakespeare.wordpress.com, or you can head over to our Facebook page, our Facebook group, right here on Instagram, on YouTube, on LinkedIn, or anywhere else. All you have to do is search New York Shakespeare. Thank you all for joining us here tonight, whether you're watching in person or rather on the live broadcast now or on replay. We thank you so much. Support your local Shakespeare, whether that's here in New York or elsewhere, and keep Shakespeare alive. Thank you very much. My name is Rodney Hakim. Have a wonderful night.